Our youngest daughter, she did it in a different way, and I want to have little Melinda. She's big now, but my daughter Melinda Montes come up here and explain what she prepared for her dad before I even know anything about Christ. Here's Melinda.
Well, it was an amazing thing. When the Lord came into my heart, I was, of course, from a life of emptiness in my heart, and turns out that a really bad situation after bad situation led me to somebody who led me to an amazing godly woman who shared Christ in such a loving way, and she continued on praying with me, and she became my mentor. And after that, a number of, actually a select few that were really important to me, always prayed with me. And you know, coming from the rough transition into knowing and learning from the beginning of what God is and who He is and what He can do in our lives, the transition was happening in my life, and it was amazing darkness to light. And I lived with my parents at that time, and I went to church. I started going to church 3 times a week, and it sort of probably irritated him. But it was in and out throughout the week, and the only time that I really came out of the room from studying my Bible was to eat, or to say hi, or go to work, and then come back in. And so after some time, it was sort of like, I think my father was wondering, what's going on with this child, and what's she doing in that room all the time? And so he started to see that what I was doing, and I had my Bible open, and God was revealing Himself in such a mighty way. But the amazing thing, along with the Word, is prayer. The prayers that my friends encouraged me and shared with me how to pray with that open heart, like a child, to say, Abba, Father, I want everything and anything that You want. And the one thing that was heavy on my heart most was that I wanted my family, my father and my mother, to come and know Christ as I did, because He had changed my life, and I knew from the hurt and the suffering and that purposeless road that we travel, and where we don't have any purpose or nobody taught us purpose, God gave that into my heart and showed me that, what He died for. And so along the way, all of a sudden, my dad started singing. I think I recall it was Elvis's hymns. You know, there was that time where Elvis had a lot of music out that was his old folk music, and so he started singing some of that, and I'm thinking, now that's strange. Why would this man all of a sudden start singing? And I think he was sort of saying, you know, I kind of see what you're doing. So then, needless to say, it was sort of, you know, time and time passed, and I had actually met a man, and I found that he was definitely God's purposed husband for me. So we got engaged, and we came to the table, a dinner with my folks, and we said that we shared that we would be engaged and we would be getting married. And I continuously prayed, and my husband now, then even as we were engaged, continuously reminded me that don't lack in faith, that you can pray them into the kingdom. And he said, no matter what, you still continue on praying. And he just pushed me in ways that I thought for sure there was no way that this hard-headed, stubborn man would never come to Christ. And so after so many prayers, and you know, there's a time that we sort of get exhausted from praying the same thing. But really, it's a great reminder to know that God really hears all those prayers, no matter how exhausting it seems. And that definitely came to God's attention, I see. In a whisper prayer, I definitely prayed, the only wedding gift that I wanted was that if the Lord could please grant me that my parents could come to know that freedom and that love of Christ. And 2 months later, in March, we got married. We had plans to get married, and my mother and I sort of gave Dad a guilt trip. We said, well, it's time that my mom said, this is time that you need to show your daughter before she leaves the house, to make a difference and try and show that love and come to church. So of course, as I continued on inviting them, we finally came once, twice. We sort of forced it, and in that moment, it was an amazing moment where my pastor at that time was introducing communion, and it was an amazing thing. I was actually in the nursery at this time, taking care of the children that morning, and the communion was served, and an altar call was given, and my husband-to-be came into the nursery and surprisingly told me that my dad and my mother were at the altar taking communion and had his hands raised before God and asked for forgiveness. And it was an amazing thing that I thought I would be there to see, but I ran out with the little child, and I just started weeping in thankfulness of the Lord that even 2 months before my wedding date that He granted that prayer and that real call of a child to say, Lord, I just want that love in my father and my mother's heart too. And I didn't even think that both of them would come at the same time, but I thank God and His grace and His mercy. And here He is today, serving the Lord.